when I wake up, I'm like, okay, I can't really complain. You know, if I have aches and pains, I'm like, not everybody in life gets a do-over. It's crazy that I got to live like so many other lives and then get to come back to this. It's like a fantasy that is reality. So I just gotta get myself mentally prepped. It's like part of my pre-workout regimen.
One of the things that we know about life is that it is always changing. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. The real challenge of growth, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, comes when you get knocked down. Somebody said that.
My mom divorced my dad when I was 6, and she immediately got into a toxic relationship. The guy later became my stepdad. And just like any relationship that deals with addiction comes abuse, other drugs, moving around a lot.
In the world today, look at this!
Growing up, watching pro wrestling was like a huge, influence for me. There was always like a story behind it and how the guy just overcomes adversity. Bret the Hitman Hart, he had that saying, you know, I'm the best there is, the best there was,
and the best there ever will be.
So I kind of like adopted that myself because what people saw was
a short, pudgy kid in Apache Junction that had a lot of heart.
Amongst meth labs and trailer parks. Family struggled with addiction and he was going down a similar path.
Depression's just something else, and I was never like clinically diagnosed, but I would use drugs and kind of escape like what was really going on.
And there is no one that does it better than the Macho Man Randy Savage.
I like the bad guys, I call them heels, but it's just because I feel like I can resonate with them. Their backstories usually come from bad upbringing or people never saw the best in them. But in the inside, you know, they're just regular people just wanting to be liked and to fit in and to feel loved. So I felt like that was me.
I think AJ is a great litmus test to overcome some odds. Not because it's a bad place or because Apache Junction High School is a bad school, but you know, everybody's kind of on the same page there where, you know, they're fighting.
I just kind of had like this alter ego that if I didn't look like the prototype person, I still had the skills, the drive, the heart that could accomplish the same type of things. And so when I got to play sports, I was that kid who can hit hard. It kind of showed me that, you know, who I feel about myself inside is true. I kind of adopted that no matter where I went. And that went all the way until high school when I met my wife and we have a kid on the way.
And eventually, you know, a baby came along. It was kind of disheartening to me when I'd see him and we wouldn't make eye contact.
Northwestern College had called and asked if I still wanted to come out there and wrestle after I graduated. And at this point, I'm like, man, you do not want me. You know, I have a kid on the way, battling a drug problem. I don't even know if I'm gonna graduate. I'm the last person you want. He's like, you need to get out of that environment. So I went to Northwestern for a year. My wife was gonna be expecting our second child now. It just got to a point where, you know, she just couldn't do this on her own. So I had to put my, you know, dreams and selfishness on hold and take care of them.
On April 22nd, 2004, at 6:45 p.m., Army Ranger Pat Tillman was killed in the outskirts of the tiny village of Megara, Afghanistan. Pat
Tillman had just died about 4 or 5 months prior to me even thinking about joining the military. That was the turning point.
Corey, don't go too fast. Slow down, let everybody...
I guess one of the first things that stood out to me was like my first exposure to dead bodies.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
6 months, you're already at that breaking point, and it's like month 7, month 8, month 9.
10, 11.
Head injuries, roadside bombs. Boy got his bell rung more than once.
Traumatic brain injury during my first deployment and second deployment. When is this gonna stop?
When we're working with complex trauma, we're not just working with a single event, we're working with a history of adverse experiences and how the bodies learn to cope with that.
My childhood kind of helped prepare me to survive over there.
Complex trauma affects the brain primarily by reorganizing how the brain processes information.
Because obviously you want to watch out for, depression creeping in or negativity. So
I think I was able to not necessarily be numb from things, but I was able to kind of react in a way where I'm not frantic about certain things.
Everything that you've been doing, you got to keep it up. Doing a great job, just stay on it. Okay. All right, Roman. Good to see you today, man.
Having trauma almost became like a drug. If there wasn't chaos or something going on, then you kind of felt like something was missing.
He continued to challenge himself, tried out to become a Green Beret.
There's a song, the Ballad of the Green Beret. 100 men will test today, but only 3 win the Green Beret.
In people who have experienced trauma, it's very common to see them strive and achieve, strive and achieve. If I make myself the strongest, then no one can harm me.
There was a lot of naysayers at the beginning, you're not big enough, strong enough, you don't look like John Cena.
Getting struck by lightning during the Special Forces qualification course. Alicia, his wife, contracting thyroid cancer in the middle of all that. I mean, the dude's like a bad news magnet.
It was one of those things that kind of added fuel to the fire, that this is what you do in life, when things get rough, you just keep going.
He successfully completed Green Beret training on multiple deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan, multiple deployments into Central and South America. To have someone like that on your team with that kind of character, like, hey, no matter what comes, I'm gonna keep on getting up and not only motivate myself, but also to continue to be that infectious personality amongst your team, that's something special.
Kramer, you ready? Yeah. Sun double tough on 3. 1, 2, 3. Sun double tough.
But the brain's still the brain. Having PTSD, traumatic brain injury, vertigo, all these things that I have, if you don't get them resolved, they're just gonna come back later. I gotta find a different chapter in my life.
It's kind of weird, like everybody gets that itching, like to go back to school, like when they hit like that midlife crisis. And just, my daughter's 17 years old, and to think, she'll be walking these campuses, pretty soon. So for me to do that, it's like, it's kind of awesome. You kind of get to go back in time and kind of live it.
And because that wasn't enough,
something inside of me was like, man, how do I become part of the athletic program?
If we let every person join the roster that wanted to wrestle here, we'd have 4,000 kids on the team.
There was a young man looking a little bit lost in the lobby. I said, excuse me, could I help you? He said, could you tell me where I could find the wrestling coaches? I said, well, they're upstairs on the 2nd floor, but you know what, I'll take you.
And he introduced me to the coaches.
But the first thing I thought was, he's pretty old.
The first reaction from them was, well, 34-year-old's not going to make our lineup.
I had concerns about adding him to the roster. You're a Division I program, you're trying to serve your elite student athlete to ensure that he has everything he needs, and you don't want to draw on other resources, medical staff, academic support.
All right, guys, come on up to the board. Let's go.
Here's somebody that knows how to move through life, and he will help our lineup.
It turns out your eligibility is frozen if you serve. They asked me, like, hey, why don't you just try to walk on? And that just blew my mind. I was like, I'm 33 years old. Like, is that even possible? The coaches, they gave me a tryout process.
He can hold his own wrestling pretty good. He can roll around with our best guys. He's in great shape.
Yeah, at first I looked at him as like the granddad. Gee, I was just like, I didn't even know why he was on the team. I saw him and I was like, is he serious right now?
We're not going to take it easy on him. He's got to do the work.
Man, physically it's definitely an arduous task. These guys are the elite. They're the best of the best, and they don't really treat me as the old guy or anything.
He's been able to share life experiences that no one could ever share with our team. You have to be able to make a difference in our program to be on our team, and Roman makes a difference on our team.
It's literally the prototype teammate.
Oh, thank you. That was nice.
You know, he just legit, genuinely wants to see me be like as good as I can.
Let's go. Put your feet right there. Feet on the line. Feet on the line, both of them. Ready? Go.
The hurdles and the trials and tribulations that he's had to overcome to get where he's at was unbelievable, and they still are. Full-time student, full-time athlete, full-time dad, 6 kids.
That's what life is. It's gonna get hard.
You know, I grew up in a broken home, so having a family that's all together still, it's definitely a process.
Definitely our first tradition is to always sit down and have family meals together. To talk to each other, see how everyone's day was.
It's a lot of good one-on-one FaceTime with everybody.
The real FaceTime.
Yeah, the real FaceTime. Rome wasn't built in a day, and that's the same thing like with the family. It takes work, it takes, you know, it's like a garden, it takes a lot of tending to. My intent coming back to school was to become, you know, a therapist.
How do you feel now? Better? Yeah. That's good.
Like, really, I was able to understand, like, dude, you're not a fucking bad person.
Growing up with a broken family, poverty, war, trauma, being married for so long and having that, I felt like, you know, I've been able to kind of build up the credentials to maybe help some other people without having to self-medicate and go down some bad paths.
That's good. All right. Yep. Take it easy. Thank you. See you, buddy. See ya.
His struggle and triumph. The guy has had one of the hardest life paths imaginable, but in the end, he still found triumph, and he's still looking for triumph. Make no mistake.
By me being able to do something that I dreamed about almost 17 years ago, just validates, like, life is what you make it. You own your life. You choose what you do.
He's been in some battles bigger than ours that I'd like to think, you know, we put him in there, he could do well.
You guys ready to compete? Roman, you ready to go? I'm ready to do it. All right, let's go, man. Let's get some work done.
I wouldn't be on this wrestling team if I didn't want to compete or actually wrestle on a match.
1, 2, 3. Start on top.
Despite if I'm going up against the best of the best, if I'm going to get my head ripped off, well, I'm going to make it hard for him, I'll tell you that.
For Roman to get out there, I know that would make his day, and just knowing that all he's done and literally sacrificed, that is something I feel like could be, I don't think it could be repaid all at once, ever. I would not stop smiling, honestly.
He had every excuse under the sun to fold.
He has found ways to displace that trauma throughout his life over and over again.
Too many of us assume that we can't. And I think the message that Roman provides, it's polar opposite. To say, what's going to stop me?
Just having a singular sense and that I'm going to succeed regardless of what happens. If I'm going to get blown up overseas in Afghanistan, or if I'm going to get blown up getting double leg takedown by whoever in the NCAA, I'm going to make it.
Once I'm done with the sport of wrestling, that's someone I would model my life after.
But it's not over. He's a young man in life terms. He's just old in wrestling terms. He's just getting started coming back and serving his country on U.S. soil. That struggle will continue to help him lead himself in triumph, and not only himself, but others.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this video, check out these other videos from USA Today to stay up to date with all the latest news.